Hello, everyone, and welcome to this time's front-end functional group update. I'm very happy to show you some of our updates and the progress that we have done on the front-end team in the last weeks. So let's get started. So first of all, we have three new great members on the front-end team. We have Adriel, who already started. He's working as a senior front-end engineer on the monitor specialty team. We have Martin Wojcik, who started as a senior front-end engineer on the manage specialty. And we have another candidate who will be starting on the 17th of September on the configure part. And we are very happy that as he was from Cape Town, he was already able to join us on the team dinner. What else did happen? So we moved around a little bit the specialty areas that are how they are managed. So Andrea took over also create. So he's managing now create and plan, as they are also technically very close. So it made total sense that one person is managing both of those areas. So Phil and Paul are now his direct reports. Another thing that changed in the front-end team is that Annabelle, she transitioned to, or is in the phase of transitioning to the UX team. She was always doing and was always the best in our CSS parts, and she was doing a fantastic job there. And as she was really interested on getting more and more into design, we found a win-win situation for the front-end team, but also for the UX team, because as Annabelle will be bringing over all her knowledge to the UX team, which is targeting to do more CSS in the future. I think it's a perfect fit for both of us, and we have a direct technical contact in the UX team also that we know very well, and so we are doing currently a smooth transition also on the capacity side. We're hiring. Everyone, please, if you know front-end engineers or front-end engineering managers, please refer them to us. We are still looking for 2 more managers and 3 more engineers in this quarter. Overall, we were also still able to improve our delivery rate even more over the last 3 release cycles. So we are getting now around 80% output, and we are trying to improve here and there more steps that we are getting closer and closer to the 100%. What else? Our main Q3 OKRs, besides, of course, hiring, is performance. We constantly want to improve our performance. What we have done with 11.2 is one big thing is the dynamic image resizing. So we are doing this now for .com through a CDN, through Fastly. So what we have done so far is we have created on the front-end side that we are adding parameters that are sent to the backend that basically tell the backend we will be using this image in the size 12 by 12 pixels, because at the moment, this doesn't matter, so the backend will always send you back the original avatar. So even if you have like 30 avatars which have 12 by 12 pixels, we will get them delivered and shown in a size of 200 by 200. And this is also adding up on not only on the performance of rescaling them, but of course also the network bandwidth. So what we have tried is now to figure that out if we can do this through Fastly, through image optimization, and it's already activated on staging. And we are currently figuring out the pricing and see if this is something that we can put also to production. The long-term plan is still and will be still that we also do this on the Ruby side and figure out a way that we also have not only avatars but also content images to have a really optimized experience there. The other things are that we also delivered in 11.2 are prefetching of DNS for CDN setups. That also helps .com a little bit and saves, I think, 100 to up to 300 milliseconds, because we already have the DNS cached before everything loads. And we started to simply extract and take out page-specific CSS files. So, by example, we have taken out the CSS for the web IDE, we have taken out the for the terminal, and we have taken out for, I think, a third area already. So we were simply able to reduce our CSS size by making them page-specific. What do we have in targeted for 11.3? We want to do the first MVC for PWA, so progressive web apps, for delivering service workers and also caching, so that we improve our mobile experience in specialty, and also make more caching directly on the client side that we actually can control through JavaScript and also service workers, to have a starting point to, in the future, by example, cache in our local storage already, like project data, etc., so that as soon as you access another project, that we already have more and more stuff loaded. Another thing is that that comes in handy is now we have a wide browser support for intersection of servers. We want to improve that, our lazy image loading. And one of the things that we also want to kick off is targeted JavaScript builds. This is a really interesting topic, as we have currently builds which are targeting all the browsers, and we want to bring this down to actually target, have a modern JavaScript package, and a package that is basically supporting also older browsers. That should bring down the overall JavaScript size. Improvements. What did we ship overall that are really interesting from the front-end engineering side? We had one thing that is client-side evaluation in the Web IDE powered by Code Sandbox. So we partnered up with Code Sandbox there. So please take a look at the video here, which is linked in the slides. It's a really nice feature to actually try out your JavaScript code, to actually see how it is performing. You can change stuff live. I think it's a really awesome feature. If you want to know more about the implementation, you can ask Phil. He has done a fantastic job on integrating that here. And so he's the person to go to actually find out more details how this magic is working. Then we have also milestone lists on the issue board. So that is something where we have added also on the board side more features on the client side, which is, as the boards will always be very front-end intensive features. Another big thing that is also very important for us, in my perspective, is snowplow statistic tracking. So we already activated this on .com, and it's generating tons of data. This is only through page view tracking. So at the moment, it simply tracks every page view on .com. This is, of course, a huge thing for product, as they know now better how the product is actually used, and we will intensify this with through event tracking, which is targeted for 11.4, so that we actually track how many times was a label added, how many times in all those interactive parts that we have in view, so that we see how the things are behaving there. But for the engineering, it's also very important, especially for the front-end engineering, because we can identify easier hot routes, so that we know what areas of the product are used in a very frequent way, so that perhaps we cache stuff from that we preload data, etc. So that is something that how we want to map out performance improvements in the near future. And the other things are actually getting more info and insight into our clients. In the clients which are used, so IE11, classic topic for any front-end developer. How much is IE11 used? But also a topic that we want to get better in is like mobile. What are screen sizes? What are the measurements on the mobile phones that people use to access GetLab.com, etc., etc. So we hope that this will give us a huge insight and will also help us on improving how we implement stuff. Challenges. What are our main challenges as we move forward? Hiring is still our #1 priority, and definitely will be also in the next quarter. We met our targets in the past, but of course, it's as we are increasing our target, it definitely gets more challenging also to definitely meet all our goals. So please refer people. We are trying to, as we have on front-end, unfortunately, we have a lot of candidates, but there it gets harder to simply get them through the pipeline and really see what are our great candidates and get them hired. So we were very lucky with Adil, by example, where we, from our first sighting to the actual start date, were just 4 to 5 weeks. So that's really nice. The other big thing is really with constant things that are happening, it's always important also to move forward our technical improvements, and that at a constant rate, so that we have enough engineering bandwidth on that part and that we are able to move that forward. And with all that stuff said, I'm handing over to Andrea.
Thanks, Tim. So right now we wanted to provide a little bit of an update to a topic that we've covered on the previous FGU, those of you who there remember. So this topic is still pretty much on our radar, giving the importance, and we want to give you an update of how things went and what we're doing so far. So upon the launch of the merge request refactor, we identified a couple of problems, and some of them severe. So we had a couple of feature regressions that we covered on the previous FGU, but more than that, we also identified severe performance issues on medium and large merge requests. We were testing on several kinds of sample data of merge requests, but some extreme cases that might be actual use cases that happen often when you're dealing with releases and that sort of thing were actually unacceptably slow, causing locks in the UI, and the memory footprint was just increasing to great heights. So apart from that, we also started tackling and fixing those feature regressions, and as a parallel effort, we also try to solve the performance issues. We ran into a few problems, as some of you might be aware, because there was a bit of a back and forth regarding releases in the past few weeks, because we had to remove some of those fixes because they were actually making performance worse. So that came from the case that we're not testing extreme cases of those large merge requests when we were merging and reviewing the code. So what we had to do, we had to remove them from master and then reintroduce them very carefully after some extensive performance testing. So then when we started working specifically in improving overall performance, we had set up a sample project, and Lucas helped a lot with that. Thanks, Lucas, on providing a sample code base that we could test merge requests from the small ones to the large ones to the extra large ones with thousands and thousands of changes to actually push it to the limits. And then we went in, thanks Tim for that help as well, we went into the data structures and how we access that data within our Vue.js app, that with memory footprint in mind and also speed. All throughout this process, we were doing extensive performance testing. We're going to show you these results right now. This is basically the evolution of a merge request with 10,000 lines changed as best as we could measure it. So when I must remind you that on 10.8 we were still doing the server-side render. The page would render all at once, and we had on the 10,000 lines changes around 12 seconds time to render the whole page. Once we released the merge refactor, and this graphic shows how drastic it was, the change, and how bad it worsened, the performance for the full complete render was 35 seconds. However, the first paint or the perceived performance was better, although it locked the UI and lasted for 35 seconds working until you could actually see the diffs. So that was our basically starting point when we started tackling the performance problems. And at each release, we added constant improvements, and we got to 11.3, which is the one that we have in production now, using an incremental rendering strategy that we render not all of the file changes at once, but we do them using a queue to render them as we can and as the browser has time for that. So I have here the times that were actually taken from a sample test that we ran on the same machine, but we should take a look at the percentages that we came from 11.1.4 to 11.3, and this is actually very important measures when we're talking about front-end performance, that we had a decrease in 72% in scripting time, 83% in rendering time, and the memory actually went down to 63% from that high bar right there. And if you're interested in knowing the analysis that we did and the tracking and all the numbers, there's a link at the bottom, MR performance analysis with detailed numbers, if you want to have a look at that. So in the future, we still have a couple of regressions that we are actively currently working on that are being prioritized. And as a side effort as well, we are also already looking into building new features on top of this. The batch comments are one of the examples. Of course, they were affected by all of the back and forth, but we needed to put this into shape before actually shipping more code on top of it. But that is the future, continue to clean up the regressions. And as we progress, we are definitely going to keep performance in mind, because we do not want to worsen the experience and have to climb ourselves out of that hole again. And with that, I will pass it on to Clement to give us an update on GetLabUI.
Thanks, Andre. All right, so GetLabUI, for those of you guys who are not familiar with it, basically GetLabUI is kind of our step towards building a component system. And here are the main highlights I wanted to bring up. We've started wrapping and integrating the components, and specifically, we've already integrated the progress bar component, implementing it on GetLabUI and integrating it to CE as well. We've added image snapshots for basic visual regression testing on a component level. We've added these Storybook knobs, which allow the team to interact with these components on the web rather than having to download the project itself. We've also added the ability to publish to NPM in a very simple way using CI pipelines and open source library called Semantic Release. And I also wanted to shout out to Andres for helping contribute to our README. It's really encouraging to see people outside of the front end team helping our effort with GetLabUI. For 11.3 specifically with GetLabUI, we are wrapping and integrating more components, specifically modal, tooltips, and pagination. We're trying to add more steps for the contribution so that other team members in the front end team and outside of front end can help contribute, as well as creating the documentation flow so that we can start importing these documentation into the design library that UX has moving forward in the future. And so how do we do image snapshots? I wanted to go over that real quick. That hasn't really been talked about as much in the previous conversations. And so I just wanted to highlight it real quick. So image snapshots uses StoryShots Puppeteer, implementing just image snapshots internally. So what we do is we take a snapshot of the component, so what it visually looks like as we merge the merge request of the component. And then each time, whenever a merge request is created for adding a new component or something, we will actually do a diff on the images that are generated. So here is an example of an image of the progress bar. On the left is what is in the project itself, and on the right is what the current merge request is implementing. So in the past on GitLab CE, if someone decided to change the progress bar height from 4 pixel to 6 pixel, that would be something that we wouldn't be able to catch unless you're looking really carefully. With this system setup, this is an image snapshot of 4 pixels to 6 pixel change for the progress bar. We're able to get an error in the CI, and we have this diff output to show you kind of what the difference between the past and the current MR is. So it's really cool that we have these freebies from moving towards the component system of GetLabUI so that we can actually start tracking some visual changes on our component level, because in the past that was something that we weren't able to do. So that's pretty cool that we can do that. And then next I wanted to talk about roadmap real quick. We're going to continue planning and implementing which wrapped components to prioritize on. And so my team will start working on components that are high targets, high impact, and make a system so it's easier for the rest of the team to implement their components on an as needed basis, so that we can start collaborating with the UX team to figure out the steps and the timeline for rewriting our CSS so that we can implement the design system, which is kind of the end goal that we're trying to do with GetLabUI. So I also want to thank the UX team for all their support in this area, because that's been very helpful. And back to you, Tim. Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. I have one more thing, the live demo of the Storybook. So I wanted to demonstrate real quick the knobs that I was talking about so if you click on that link for the slides, sorry, the Zoom live stream is a little bit slow for me, so I'm unable to see it. But if you go to the Storybook URL, there's knobs on the right, and you can actually change some of the values. So I just wanted to demonstrate that real quick. You can change the value of the progress bar, so it will dynamically change. You can change the variant, which will change the UI. So this is just a really great way for us to kind of start empowering our front-end engineers as well as community contributors to start utilizing our components more effectively, making them more reusable. They're more documented, so we can start communicating more effectively as we build things. And that's it for my update. Back to you, Tim. Thanks.
Thanks, Clement. I hope everyone was able to see Storybook. Otherwise, I have failed miserably at screen sharing. So thanks a lot. So we are at the final and most interesting part. Does anyone have questions? Then I will count a 3, a 2, a 1. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you to the whole Frontend team for all their efforts, as always. And everyone else, have a really great day and see you soon in another call.